car crash cases, defective products, dangerous drugs, injuries, and abuse. Across the state of Alabama, the attorneys, proudly sponsored by the law firm of Hollis Wright, are here to serve you. Your tough legal questions answered by our experts. The attorneys with Josh Wright from the law firm of Hollis Wright and host David Lamb.
Good evening and welcome into the attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We've got a panel of experts ready to deal with the topic of conversation that, trust me, will matter to all of us tonight. That conversation on the way. First, though, a couple of reminders. Attorneys from Hollis Wright standing by live all throughout the program tonight. That free, confidential, all-fair conversation is just a pickup of the phone away. And all throughout the program, the way you can join our conversation, that info at the bottom of your screen. Would love to hear from you. Leading our conversation, he's managing partner of the firm Hollis Wright. Josh Wright, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you. Hope you had a great week, as usual.
I did indeed. Thank you.
So we're lucky tonight because we're blessed to have our good friend John Spade from our law firm on. John is just an outstanding lawyer with our firm, been with us multiple years now, and he does a lot of automobile accident related cases, and he advises a lot of people on issues of insurance. Give you an interesting statistic.
Let's hear it.
We're talking tonight about uninsured motorist coverage, and the typical viewer may not even really understand quite yet what that is. They're going to after the show.
Okay.
But you have uninsured motorist coverage to fill the gap when people don't have liability coverage if they cause an accident. 20% of drivers in Alabama don't have liability insurance, which is a violation of the law.
Wow.
So that's where John is able to advise clients not only post-accident, but we all renew our insurance cards every 6 months, right? And when we do that, you have an opportunity to purchase a very cheap coverage called uninsured motorist coverage. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. So first of all, glad you're on.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me. As you're saying, it's a very important topic, something that we deal with a lot every day, but something that really I hope the viewers pick up on, and something that they if they don't have it already, they go and get some when they renew it or contact their local broker to get that uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage.
All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to explain the liability side of coverage, how that works, and then I'm going to let John explain the uninsured motorist. So let's take a typical example. You and I are in separate vehicles. You hit me. Of course, I wouldn't cause the accident.
Never.
You're the one that caused the accident, right? You hit me, right? Mm-hmm. You are supposed to have, under state law, liability coverage.
Okay.
That protects you from having to pay out of pocket for the injury that you caused to me, right? So you have liability coverage. That's generally going to be primary in all accidents. There are circumstances, however, where your liability coverage either is not enough to compensate me for my injuries, or you don't have liability insurance at all because you're violating the state law where uninsured motorist comes in. And I'll let John talk about that because that's a whole different coverage that I would have in my household.
Okay.
So yeah, this would be Josh's coverage in that scenario. Let's say that y'all are in that accident and Josh is catastrophically injured. And you had the state minimum of $25,000 in coverage, and it's just not enough coverage to compensate Josh for his injuries, his pain and suffering, everything associated with the collision. Then if Josh would then make a claim on his own insurance under his underinsured motorist coverage, basically claiming that you were an underinsured driver, did not have sufficient coverage to compensate Josh, and then his coverage would kick in. Now say that same scenario, y'all get in an accident and you have no insurance whatsoever. Josh would then be able to make a claim if he has the coverage under his policy for uninsured motorist coverage. So you hear UIM thrown around a lot. It's kind of two facets, uninsured and underinsured.
So there are some things you can do to protect yourself in those moments, and we see it all too often where somebody's injured in an accident. They did nothing wrong whatsoever, but the person that hit them just didn't have sufficient coverage or failed to get coverage in some respect. And that's unfortunate. It happens a lot. And so you can, when you're procuring insurance in your every 6 months, every year, you can buy uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist coverage for a very insignificant amount. And when I say insignificant, it's probably the cheapest insurance that you're going to buy of all the automobile insurances. It's not very expensive, and you can get a lot of that coverage, and a lot of it will protect you and your family. The key to uninsured motorist coverage is, it travels with people in their household. So if for some reason a family member of mine is in an accident and there's not sufficient coverage. My uninsured motorist coverage, if they lived in my dwelling, my underinsured motorist coverage or uninsured motorist coverage is generally going to travel with them. So it's an insurance people really need to have, and it's just not very expensive. The other thing I'd mention is this: when you sign an insurance contract, kind of your initial contract with a new company, say you go to Geico and you say, I want to get insurance with Geico, you are presumed under the law to be offered uninsured motorists. You have to reject it specifically, not to have it. And you have to sign a waiver that you don't want to have it. And there's just no reason to do that, because if you get them to price it for you, you'll realize just how insignificant the cost is.
So a couple of real quick follow-up questions. So this kind of coverage is available wherever you have automobile coverage right now. So you can get it wherever you get your insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. It follows the person, like Josh was saying. That's why it's so important. It goes with you wherever you are. If you're riding somebody else's vehicle and you get in an accident, you can still access your own personal policy if the person who caused the collision does not have sufficient coverage.
Okay. All right. And another question having to do with the amount. So how much coverage do you recommend?
That's a great question, and I know John, I'll let John give his advice too. But I'd say this: as much as you can afford without it hurting, right? Okay. So you can get UIM coverage up to $500,000 to $1 million of coverage. I mean, I've seen it that high before. hadn't seen a lot more than that. It's still probably less than the liability coverage that you're getting with a typical policy. A lot of people will get $25,000 to $50,000 worth of coverage. There are 300 policies where it's 100 per event, 300 per total accident, so 100 per person, and then 300 total for the accident. So you can go procure that insurance and obtain it without a lot of work, working with your insurance adjuster. One of the things I would ask you, and I think you can probably provide pretty good information about this, is if they're going to go do that, do you think that we probably should advise them a little bit about how stacking works and how they can actually recoup more than just that one policy?
Absolutely. So just to kind of touch on stacking initially, in Alabama you can stack up to 3 cars on the same policy. So say you have an auto insurance policy with Geico and you have 3 separate vehicles, all of which are insured through Geico. And let's say you just have the state minimum on them of $25,000 per policy on each of those cars. You can stack all 3 of those coverages, so you get a total combined coverage of $75,000.
Okay.
And it's per policy. So there's some insurance companies out there that write an individual policy for every single vehicle you insure with them. In that case, you can make a claim on each one of those vehicles up to the limits of insurance that you have. Does that
make sense? Yeah.
Okay.
Super important when you're involved in these accidents, if you have uninsured motorist coverage, to have counsel. Because if you don't have counsel, you may miss or lose out on coverage you are absolutely entitled to under your contract and the law. And when we come back, because I know we're getting ready to go to break right now, I want to hit John and pepper John with a couple questions, one of which is, what mistakes can you make in trying to do this on your own without getting a lawyer, and can you waive your own uninsured motorist coverage if you're not careful? Because I think he can answer that question for us. That will convince you need to get someone involved early.
All right, let's put John on the hot seat. We'll do that right after we take this quick break. As we do so, a reminder, we'd love to have you join our conversation. Hey, and don't forget, you can always check out the firm on social media, really active on Facebook, Twitter, as well as Instagram. Just search Hollis Wright and you'll find them there. Stay tuned, we're coming right back.
I'm Josh Wright with the law firm of Hollis Wright, a personal injury law firm. Thank you for watching The Attorneys. Now, we hope you, a friend, or a loved one never needs legal counsel for a case. But if you do, the goal of the show is simple: provide answers and legal counsel when you need it the most. Your call to the show is free, so if you have questions specific to the show or related to other accident or injury-related topics, you can call, email, or text us. Or you can also follow us on Facebook or Twitter, or simply contact us by going to hollis-wright.com and click on the Contact Us link. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for spending it with us watching The Attorneys.
Well, that's a whole lot of folks. Welcome back into The Attorneys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hey, how often do you think, man, I could really use an attorney? I need some advice. Tonight, that opportunity is free to you all throughout the program tonight. All you have to do is pick up the phone and give them a call. Attorneys from Hollis, Wright, standing by live, free, confidential, and off air. Can't beat that. Take advantage of that opportunity. Just give them a call. Josh?
You know, and we don't say this enough, but, you know, people can call, text, email. You know, we respond to Facebook posts. We respond to Twitter posts. We don't say it enough, but, you know, one of the things that makes our show unique is there are a lot of people that have legal related questions, and that doesn't change whether you go to one show or the other, because there are a couple shows on at the same time. One, you're going to talk on air, right? And one, you can have a confidential conversation with the lawyer off air. If you have a question that's legal related, you may not want to be on the air. You may want to talk confidentially with a lawyer. You may want to text a lawyer. A lot of people text now. We get a lot of texts about legal related issues, and we respond to those live that night with a lawyer that's answering your calls, texts, emails, Facebook posts, etc. So I hope people will take advantage of that, because, you know, some people look at it and they say, this is intimidating to be able to get access to a lawyer. You don't have to pay us anything. Send the question. We're going to respond to you. And then if you got real legal related issues you need help with, we may set up a consultation for free to talk with you, you know, the next day or down the road during the week when you've got time to do that, and we can lead, guide, and direct you, and hopefully get you in the right direction.
With all those options, the worst thing you can do is just do nothing. Just ignore it.
You know, the sad part is that's what a lot of people do. They put their head in the sand, and that's not, you know, it's normal, but you know, you don't want to wait on a legal related issue. You want to try and get it resolved. So whether or not, you know, the legal issue relates to uninsured motorist coverage or insurance or a car accident, it may relate to a criminal issue where, like, man, I really need to go get a lawyer, but I don't know where to start. Well, you start right here. This is your place to start, and we can get you to the right people. So anyways, that's enough plug about we answer questions. All right, so I know this is important because you see it all the time, and you had clients come to you and said, oh my gosh, I think I made a mistake. They're telling me I can't get my uninsured motorist coverage anymore because I settled my claim without a lawyer. Talk just for a moment about how that can be a bad deal.
Well, it does happen probably all too often, and it could be easily avoided if you get an attorney involved in the process early. There are certain procedural steps you have to take in making a claim for uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. First of which is you have to exhaust that first layer of coverage, but you have to give sufficient notice to your uninsured or underinsured motorist carrier that you have made, you have an offer from the liability carrier's insurance for a policy limits offer, whatever it is, and give them sufficient time to go through, and it gets a little bit in the weeds, but they can either front on the offer, or they can waive their right to subrogation and consent to it, but you have to give them notice and let them make a decision internally how they're going to proceed with the claim. And if you just accept that offer without notifying your own carrier of a potential underinsured motorist claim, you can waive all that coverage. Another important thing, and something that we've been able to find coverage on in the past, is we spoke a little bit earlier, every insurance company has to offer you uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, okay? That's the law in the state of Alabama. And you can reject, and sometimes people do, and we hope that this show will kind of change your opinion on that, but you can reject uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. When you do that, it has to be done in writing. Okay, so just because sometimes a declarations page will say that there's no uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage, if every named insured doesn't reject it in writing, then the insurance company has to, under law, afford that coverage. So there's ways that you can go about, getting coverage, and then also ways that things you must do to protect your coverage. And those are things that honestly a lot of people walking around on the street probably don't know about. And because we're so familiar with this, and other personal injury attorneys around the state are, you need to get somebody involved, because there are some pitfalls that where you maybe paid for the coverage, you're not able to access it, or if you didn't pay for the coverage but you didn't sign the release, you could still access some coverage.
Here's another little nugget of information that the viewing audience probably will not know, and that's this. If you're not at fault in your accident and you access your own uninsured motorist coverage, you should not be, under the law, tiered in a higher rate to get insurance premium rises. It's not your fault, right? So generally, you shouldn't be tiered where you're put into a group of those that are involved in accidents, and they sometimes what they call tier you, and it raises your insurance premiums. To the extent it's a non-fault accident, you pay for this rainy day coverage, this UIM coverage, to protect yourself and your family during times when someone didn't have sufficient insurance to cover you.
It seems like a good place for a question we've got here. I was driving on the highway when a car swerved into my lane, causing me to run into the guardrail. The driver who swerved into my lane did not stop. Can I make a claim on my own insurance for my injuries? This is kind of along these lines.
Yeah, absolutely, and that would fall what's called a phantom vehicle case. Okay. Your uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage kicks in when somebody, during the use, operation, or maintenance of a motor vehicle. In that situation, somebody would have been using a motor vehicle to cause your bodily injury. As long as your injuries arise from the use, operation, maintenance of a motor vehicle, then you can make that claim under your uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. I believe there's a case out there where there was a couch that was sitting in the middle of the highway. And the assumption is the couch would not have got there if it didn't fall off the back of somebody's truck. So even though you can't maybe pinpoint exactly who that driver is, the law allows you to make a claim and to present competent evidence that it was due to somebody else's use of a vehicle, and that person is, under the law, considered to be an uninsured motorist, which allows you to access your own rainy day insurance.
That's a great point. Talk about the importance, because I know you see this a lot, and I do too. Talk about the importance of getting as much information as you can about the person that ran you off the road in that scenario. Whether it's the make or the model of the car, what the car looked like, those types of things. I'm not talking about the couch example. I'm talking about someone runs you off the road, like the question was. It's super important, because ultimately your insurance is going to ask you.
Oh, absolutely.
They're going to ask you what happened, and you need to have a response to make sure that you can show to them and prove with competent evidence that someone actually ran you off the road.
Absolutely. You got to think that the insurance company, their knee-jerk reaction is they don't want to pay out a claim if they're not, required to do so. And so there's going to be some pushback from them. Take any photographs that you might be able to. If it is an object in the road, you can snap a photo to show what it is. If you can get license plate number, if you can get at least vehicle make and model, that sort of stuff, to tell the police officer when they come to the scene, this is what happened. I was run off the road by a black sedan, or with an Alabama license plate, or whatever you can gather to prove up that it was a car that ran you off the road, because the insurance company, they're going to have questions naturally.
If you can't prove with competent evidence that you were run off the road or a uninsured vehicle caused your accident, you can't access your own uninsured motorist coverage. So that's why it's so important. I'll give you one really, I know we're about to go to break, but let me just give you one really quick piece of information about what I think, with a couple lawyers in our firm, is some really creative, good lawyering, and that's this. We've got a case now where a young lady had an accident. We won't go into all the details. Had an accident. It was a very significant accident. The first thing she said when she came to in the hospital with the doctor was that someone ran her off the road. The insurance company ultimately said, well, hold on, that's not competent evidence, because she didn't tell anybody else that. She doesn't remember the specifics of the accident. And our creative lawyers, who busted it in this case because they believed in this young lady, went, talked with the doctor, got the doctor to provide a statement, and the doctor's statement ultimately is going to, in a positive way, help that girl's case. So that's a good example of good, creative, smart lawyering to protect the interests of a client. That poor client, that young lady, would never, through her family, have been able to do that, but for the fact that she got lawyers that believed in her.
Yeah, important to get that good counsel. Hey, time for our final break of the evening. As we head to break here, a couple of reminders. Would love to still have you join the conversation. Got a few minutes remaining. Also, be sure and check out the firm Hollis Wright on social media. A great educational, informational resource for you. Trust me, you're going to want to check that out. We've got more of the attorneys coming right up.
I'm attorney Tyler Vail with the law firm of Hollis Wright. Many people ask the same question: why should I hire a lawyer? While there may be some legal situations that do not require you to hire a lawyer, the clear majority of legal problems would certainly benefit from having competent counsel involved. To begin with, the law is complicated. Even experienced lawyers typically do not represent themselves in court. A solid case with clear liability can quickly unravel without the help of a trained attorney. Lawyers understand the rules of evidence and know how to properly lay a foundation to get critical evidence and testimony admitted into court. Lawyers are trained to recognize legal problems early on in a case and can help avoid pitfalls that unrepresented individuals may fall into. Lawyers can also increase the value of a case by getting experts involved to help prove additional damages that an unrepresented person may not realize they are entitled to. An experienced lawyer has probably worked on cases like yours and can give insight to negotiating a fair settlement based on recent jury verdicts and settlements that unrepresented individuals may not have access to. Another important reason to hire an attorney is because the person or business you sue will likely have legal representation themselves. Non-attorneys are generally at a disadvantage when squaring off against opposing counsel or doing business with another party that has legal counsel. The law is complicated, and an attorney who is representing your adversary may try to take advantage of you. Our law firm offers free case consultations that allow you to meet with us for free during a face-to-face meeting, where we can discuss the type of case you have, the potential value of your case, and your likelihood of success. This initial meeting can help you decide whether you need to hire a lawyer. Please remember, your call, email, or text to the attorneys is free. All of us at Hollis Wright want to help answer your questions on real issues you face. Remember, a competent lawyer will respond to every question you send in. That's our pledge and promise to you. Thanks for watching The Attorneys on WVTM 13.
Welcome back into The Attorneys. Just a few minutes remaining for you to pick up the phone and call an attorney from Hollis Wright. They're standing by live right now, so take advantage of that opportunity. We get some great questions. A question we've got here: I was driving into work early one morning and a deer ran out in front of me, causing me to swerve and hit a tree. Can I make an uninsured, underinsured claim there?
Unfortunately, no, you can't. Again, it has to arise out of the use, ownership, maintenance of a motor vehicle. Or use, operation, or maintenance of a motor vehicle. And unfortunately, in that scenario, a deer running out in front of the road is not going to give rise to one of those situations that's going to trigger coverage. So in that scenario, unfortunately, you cannot make a claim.
But have seen a case in the past where a horse fell off a horse trailer in the road, causing an accident where UIM coverage is applicable. So again, go get counsel.
Seek counsel.
Yep.
Another quick question here. I was riding in a vehicle with a friend. He did not have any insurance. I live with my parents. They have several vehicles with UIM coverage. Can I make a claim on their insurance?
Yes, you can. Remember, you've got your whatever insurance policies you might have, and then also if you're a resident relative, if so, your parents in that scenario have insurance and you live with your parents on a full-time basis or live there regularly, then you can access their policies as well. And then you can also, if they have multiple policies like in that scenario, then you can stack those coverages assuming the other vehicles also have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage.
And it's super important before you give a statement to the insurance company, even your own uninsured motorist carrier, that you get lawyers involved, because a lot of times the way that the adjusters are asking questions is to determine whether or not someone actually is a resident relative, and you could say something incorrect that actually impacts whether you have coverage or not and may not actually be reality, like whether someone's in college at the time, how long are they living with their parents, and sometimes it's just good to have lawyers involved that can kind of walk you through, hey, here's what they're going to ask you, and here's a pitfall that you can fall in, you know, and that would be a pitfall that wasn't accurate, so let's make sure that we're accurate in the language we use about where you're living, how many months out of the year you're living there, are you getting your mail there, are you getting your bills there, those types of things all matter and play into whether uninsured motorist coverage is even applicable in the first place.
How important is timeliness when it comes to accidents and making a claim, filing a claim?
It is extremely important. We talk about it all the time that, you know, the further you get away from an accident, evidence starts to disappear. People's memories start to fade, and evidence can disappear completely. So, you know, you need to, it's very important to be diligent about documenting everything immediately after an accident and really getting an attorney involved in the case as early as you can. You know, this is a situation where, you know, you can be catastrophically injured, and if you are and you don't have this coverage in place, it can come back to bite you on the back end. And as Josh was mentioning, you know, early on in the show, this coverage is not expensive. You're talking, you know, tens of dollars each premium period to get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of coverage. And so it's definitely something that I think all of our viewers should consider when purchasing insurance.
If nothing else, get a lawyer involved early on. Here's why. The vehicles will be gone quickly, right? They get salvaged by insurance companies and they're gone. There's actually black box data that can be downloaded in most vehicles after the 2002, 3, 4 time frame. There's black box data that can be downloaded and used in these automobile accidents that will assess speed, braking, etc. So you want to get that as quick as you can.
A minute and a half remaining in the show, but want to give both of you the opportunity for a final thought. And John, if you would, you go first.
Yeah, this is an area of the law that we see all too often, and it can result in individuals, and unfortunately it's probably the worst part of our job when somebody comes in to our office with a catastrophic injury. The person who caused the injury has little to no insurance, and they don't have any insurance coverage for themselves to fall back upon. And it's a very difficult situation to be in, and so if you are presented with the opportunity, you need to purchase this insurance.
Josh?
I just want to highlight this guy. He's been with our firm multiple years. I used to call him a young lawyer, and I've noticed how good he's gotten at doing these types of cases, and I mean that sincerely, and it's why we have him at our law firm. And so, you know, give him a shot. If you've got an uninsured issue, if you've got a car accident, go to John. John does a great job at our law firm. He's an outstanding lawyer, and been super impressed with his ability to be creative to get coverage for people where others would not be able to get coverage. So keep it up.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Keep it up, big guy.
Appreciate both of you all being with us, Josh and John, and also we really do thank you for being with us each and every week. We'll look for you next time as we wrap things up. Here's how you can get in touch with the firm. Also, thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next time right here on The Attorneys.
Thanks for watching The Attorneys, sponsored by Hollis Wright.